What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 2 of SSPN. This is obviously a much better recap. And I think this kind of worked out perfectly for us, Ethan, because it was like, okay, we kind of had the trial run in the first game against the Kings. And now we get to reset in this second game against the Kings where things went a lot better for the Spurs. And I think that now we'll have all this review stuff down and we'll get this out and it'll be smooth sounding in your podcast feed or on your YouTube feed.
It
I guess that's what
sounds,
you call it.
yeah, whatever, YouTube feed, whatever it is. I mean, whatever you say, Jude, is correct. And you're absolutely right because the Spurs actually played well tonight. It was a surprise for me because we really were off in that first game. The Kings were hitting every single one of their shots, but it was a opposite tonight. The Spurs defense was a lot better. We had a lot more urgency. We had a lot more rotational, closeout speed. We were just a lot better all the way around. And yeah, it was just a lot better of a game overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And I told you earlier I was working out, so I missed a little bit of the game.
Mhm.
But just looking at the box score here, that first quarter eerily similar to Monday's game, but the difference was in the second quarter this time the Spurs won that 36-26. So in the last game I believe it was 31-27. This game it was 33-27. So a little bit bigger lead, but they were able to build on that in the second quarter. And I think that was because from what you've told me and from what I did see in the second half that I was able to watch, um, that was because Rudy Gay and Patty Mills came off the bench on fire.
They absolutely did. They were both extremely efficient, especially from three. And something that I saw that was extremely evident all night long was we fixed our offensive scheme. In the first game, you noticed it a lot, Drew, where DeMar or Rudy or somebody would stuck in the mid range and we'd have to settle for these last second, turnaround jumpers. And that wasn't the case this game, especially in the first half. Everybody was moving off ball, including DeMar, including Rudy, and we were getting the best shots possible, and it was clear by the score in the second quarter, especially.
Yep. And, while there was a positive there in the first half coming off the bench, an unfortunate negative was we got to see Gorgie Jang for a whopping 6 minutes and then he got hurt. So our lineup is basically the same. So that was just wanted to get your thoughts on that because that was kind of tragic that, okay, we get him out here. He's in the rotation
Mhm.
and he's hurt.
It was very disappointing. It was a solid 6 minutes from Gorgie.
It
I am
was just the
excited.
best 6 minutes ever, man.
I mean, yeah, Pop said pregame that he was just hoping to get his feet wet. I don't think he was going to play that many minutes anyway. But from what I saw, he looked comfortable. He had that syndrome. The announcers were talking about it. Sean Elliott and Bill Land. They're saying everyone that comes to the Spurs, they kind of forget who they are and start making the extra pass too many times. And that's
Hmm.
what I was seeing from him. He was being super unselfish, which is always a good thing because we can let him shoot later on. But it was definitely a solid 6 minutes from Gorgie. He played defense pretty well, and he's rolling to the basket. You can't ask for anything more. But Drew Eubanks saved the day. He was a spark off the bench in the second half. Very excited to see Drew. Oh, but I wanted to ask you one question, Jude, about last game. Do you remember if DeMar played the whole first quarter or not?
I don't remember that off at the top of my head, but what I do know is that he usually plays all of the first quarter. But I want to say I think they might have taken him out last game. You can correct us if we're wrong in the comment section, but he usually plays the whole first quarter. But I think in that Monday game, he might have been taken out.
Just the eye test for just watching the game, I felt like he was playing more often with the second unit than he usually does.
Hmm.
And I thought that was interesting because he wasn't really trying to score. He was definitely the guy that you would think would get the ball every time, but he was really a facilitator on that second unit, feeding guys like Rudy and Patty. And I thought that was very interesting because Derek and DeJounte, usually they'll have one of them in and take one of them out. But this game they both sat out and they both came in pretty much at the same time. And that was an interesting rotation, but it definitely worked, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah, and those two dudes in Dejounte and Derek, they can facilitate. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? We've seen both of them do that in playoff series, right? Um, and that bench like set right now with the way that Patty has played this year, and this isn't like a knock. It's because the reason that he's playing the way that he's playing this year is because he's become it's like he's emerged as an even more potent scorer, right?
Mhm.
And shooter off the dribble. I feel like that does make it a little bit more important for that second unit to have somebody like DeMar to be a facilitator. Because when you think about it, Patty is less of a facilitator this year with how well he's been shooting. And before the season, he said Australia Patty's coming in, and we've seen that this year.
Mhm.
So I can see the strategy and the mindset behind that. Obviously, you still want DeMar in the starting lineup because overall, I mean, he's our guy who's going to go out and get a bucket. 26, 7 and 5 tonight on 12 of 20 shooting, and got a block as well in tonight's ball game. But having him with that second unit, I think is important because Patty and Rudy are kind of just bucket getters for us this year. And then you've got Devin Vassell too, who's an off ball guy, you know.
Mhm. Absolutely. And DeMar in the first half, he really I wanna say I wish I knew. Do you have the stat? How many points did he get in the first half? Because to me, it looked like he wasn't shooting all that
Ooh.
much. Because in the second half, especially at the start of the third quarter, we were hot. DeMar was popping off. You know, he went to his old school,
Hmm.
getting the mid-range pull-up jumpers, and he was just knocking them down in guys' faces. And it was really, really a good
Hmm.
sight to see because in the first half, I want to say he had like 6 points or something in the first half, which
You're
isn't
talking
bad,
about
but
DeMar, just to
mhm.
just to confirm.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
here.
DeMar.
You keep talking. I will investigate.
Yeah, because when the third quarter started, we were doing really well at the beginning because of DeMar. His offense started off hot. Our defense was very solid. At the beginning, our defense worried me a little bit because we gave up a few wide open shots
Hmm.
underneath to Rashawn Holmes. He got cooking a little bit. I don't know what it is about Rashawn Holmes, but when he sees Jakob Pertl, he just gets angry and he just wants those buckets inside. I don't know what it is.
That's what Gorgie Jang wanted against us before he was on our team.
Exactly. Like I don't know what it is because he's not as tall as Jakob. I don't think he's as wide as Jakob, but he just kind of bullies him down low. And I wish I could like fix
So
it for him.
don't mean to interrupt you,
No,
but
go for it.
Demar had 10 points. He
Oh,
had
I
10
was off.
points
I
in the
was off.
first half. If I counted correctly, but I believe it was 10 points. With that being said, the majority of his points still were scored in the second half with 16.
That's why you're here, Jude, to correct me when I just pull a number out of my.
ESPN is correcting us. I'm just reading from them.
Well, we'll get copyrighted for that, I am
Oh
sure.
yeah, absolutely.
And
There you go.
someone I want to give a shout out to from the Kings, Buddy
Hmm.
Hield. It was not his fault tonight because in the third quarter he got cooking, and we just couldn't put the fire out. And luckily for us, the rest of the Kings squad really couldn't capitalize.
Hmm.
But it was not his fault. He had a run there at the end of the third quarter that was pretty impressive.
So are you saying the third quarter or the fourth quarter?
I think it was the third quarter. I
Okay.
mean, he might have
Okay.
been cooking in the
No,
fourth as well, but
no, no. Okay. So don't get your believe in yourself, Ethan.
I
Okay.
don't know, Jude.
So
No, go ahead.
here's the one thing I will say. Once again, I didn't like I said, I did see him hitting some shots late in that third quarter, yes. But and I didn't see the first half. He did go 5 for 18 and 4 for 12 from three.
Oh, he was jacking him up for sure because he hit like two or three
But
in a row, and then they just kept giving him the
they
ball.
did kind of make a little bit of a, I mean, not a big run, but him having that run in the third did kind of give them some hope. Like I was kind of nervous as a Spurs fan, like going into that fourth quarter. I was like, oh, they're selling so hard. Um, but obviously they ended up pulling it out, thankfully. But if you look at that, the Spurs, granted they were bigger runs, but go back to that Spurs Bulls game, not the one with Vucevic, but the one where we had the 20-point comeback.
Mhm.
I think that we had about the same deficit that the Kings had against us tonight. So me watching a Spurs game this year where the Spurs have done that to somebody, it was like still, Buddy Hield going on that little run does make you a little bit nervous because we've seen it this year where you can make some big comebacks if you win the fourth quarter handily. So
Yeah, for sure. I do have one question for you, Jude, about
okay.
this game. What was the difference? Because it was clear that there was something that the Spurs either changed, from last game to this game. What was the difference there?
You know, to be honest, Ethan, I don't know from what I saw in the little amount that I did see. I don't know if it was as much the Spurs as if the Kings just coming a little bit back down to earth,
Hmm.
um, and not, going bananas and scoring 132 points. Um, because here's the thing, them missing shots allowed the Spurs to run in transition, right? Or the Spurs forcing turnovers allowed DeJounte Murray had 3 steals tonight. Patty Mills had 2. The team overall had 9, right?
Mhm.
That allows the Spurs to run in transition, which allows them to kind of play their game. Like, it's wild to say, as Spurs fans, we've been so accustomed to for years on years of the Spurs throwing it down to Timmy, and then they threw it down to LaMarcus. They even threw it down to Kawhi. Like, Kawhi was a post-up player. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it's very interesting now that the Spurs creating turnovers or getting rebounds on shots and putting the pace is what allows them to win games. That's what I would say, because I still did see some possessions tonight. Although it was a lot better, where DeJounte was okay. There's 6 seconds left. DeJounte is going to have to beat his man off the dribble and hit a mid-range jumper. And granted, he did in that one play that I'm remembering in my mind. But at the same time, I guess that's what I would say would be one of the differences. Another thing tonight, when I look at Jakob Poeltl, and you can correct me a little bit if I'm wrong, but 14 boards and specifically 9 defensive rebounds tonight, on top of a block and a steal as well. So it seemed like he was a little bit more of a paint presence tonight and was able to handle Rashawn Holmes. Rashawn Holmes still had 15 boards um, and had 2 blocks and 14 points, but it wasn't 20 points. So, that was helpful as well. And another thing that I will say as we kind of wrap up here, Ethan, just kind of my final thought. Um, I think that while, yes, this was a win, there are still some things that the Spurs can clean up. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but this also reminded me of the Bulls game against Vucevic. I know I brought up Bulls games in this game, but in his debut, because first of all, the score in that game was 120 to 104, and this was 120 to 106. So only 2-point difference in the score there. And obviously, the Spurs were up by 35 in that game. And the Spurs were not up by 35, but were able to consistently, um, what's the word? It kind of keep them at bay. Because
Mhm.
if we look at it quarter by quarter, the Spurs win the first by 6, they win the second by 10, and then they lose the third and the fourth quarter by 1 point, which means it's pretty close. But you can tell that in that second half, they didn't play as well as they did in the first half. And I think that we know with the Spurs this year, at least in my personal opinion, they're a team that like can play this Kings team if they play, the way that they played in the first half the whole game. And obviously there's going to be halftime adjustments. But at the same time, if they do, like, they can do that. I truly believe that they have the talent. If everybody's playing to their full potential, that they can be beating the Kings by around 10 points each quarter, which would be an even bigger W in this game tonight. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me being wishful thinking, but I think the theme for me of the Spurs is still consistently inconsistent, because
Mhm.
on Monday we get blown out by the Kings. Today we blow out the Kings. And there's not really much else to say there.
I can definitely see that. It absolutely was a tale of two halves. First half was a lot better, obviously, but again, you're right. It was because the Kings were kind of sloppy with the ball, a lot of turnovers, allowing the Spurs to play the transition game, which they have gotten so good at with all these young legs sprinting down the court. That was fun to watch. And then the second half, with I guess Kings adjustments, or maybe it was just the ball wasn't falling for us, we kind of slowed down and it just kind of went back to the way we were playing in the game previous. But overall, I'm happy with the win. I'm sure you are too, Jude.
Yes, yes. As much as there was like some, hey, let's stay on Earth talk there, guys,
Mm,
and not hype it up too much. A W is a W. And once again, look, if you're gonna get blown out by a team, you want to blow them out the next game,
yes.
right? And they did that tonight. Even
Mhm.
if everything wasn't pretty, overall, still a good dub for SA.
And Big Daddy Eubanks always creating the spark, especially in that fourth quarter. Eubanks is the GOAT. I'm telling you, he's going to be the next guy we throw it down to in
Start
the Spurs.
Eubanks.
Dude,
Yeah.
yeah, start Eubanks. I mean, I love
Start
Gorgie,
Eubanks.
but Eubanks is
Yeah.
he's the real deal,
I think
100%.
what we need to do now, since we had some wild takes last time. All right, so here's my final message for Spurs fans watching. Bench DeMar and Jakob, start Eubanks and Samanic. And that's the greatest lineup of all time right
Lob
there.
City 2.0,
The Twin
the
Towers.
Twin Towers. Oh,
Eubanks and Samanich.
the white twin towers.
Right, right.
Oh
Oh,
man.
the pastry twin towers. All
There we
right.
go. There we go. That's what we were looking for.
All right, bro. Any final thoughts on this game, Ethan?
I'm happy with it. Prove Jude wrong, Spurs, by winning
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow night against the Hawks. The Hawks are hot. They have a good offense with a lot of ball movement. If you could show us that your perimeter defense is solid
Just
and
be
consistent
consistent.
enough, that's all we want. We want 2 wins in a row. We could do it, Spurs. We could do it.
All right, one final programming note though before we leave. So this weekend we will be kind of off. Ethan, I know you're going out of town, so we'll be back when, let's see, next week
Next
basically.
Monday against the Cavs.
Okay, so we will be back next Monday against the Cavs, and maybe we'll do another episode where we kind of review the Hawks in Indiana, or maybe we don't. I don't know. We'll just go with we'll be back next Monday against the Cavs, and we'll have our first episode of the Friday podcast where we dive a little bit deeper and just talk about storylines and not just box scores and what we saw on the basketball floor, and talk a little bit more about rotations and substitutions and the future and all that good stuff.
Sounds good, Jude. I'm Ethan Quintero. That's Jude McLaren. We'll see you guys next Monday on SSPN. Thanks so much for watching.
See y'all.